Hi, welcome to Ocean Jimmy. So today I'm covering the food stamps thing because one of the things that is really spoken about in the mummy sector is about the food stamps and the EBT and certain things and how it's spent, etc. So I was on my recommendations and I came across a few videos. So I thought I would expand on it a little bit myself. Plus, I would learn a lot from it myself. Um, I literally want to also check out how it goes in Texas as well, as one of the mummies that is mostly covered. One of the mummies mostly covered. On food stamps and stuff like that. I mostly want to look at the fraud side of it, really, because there's a lot of that going on the sector regarding that. And I think it'd be kind of interesting to look at, basically. Even if I don't get through all of it, but I can look at some of it in it. Plus, not only that, it's showing me stuff, how different it is to over here and how it's dealt with. What's the I mean, I know the reasons for the food stamps is for feeding of the children, looking after children, making sure that they're fed, etc. So the one I wanted to show first, I think, let me see if I can do the video bit first, because there's a few of them. There's EBT, PP loans, all sorts that has been scammed, you know. There was a couple of them that I saw. So I'm just gonna do a couple videos. I'm not gonna go really, really deep. And if you have any information regarding the EBT and the food stamps that I haven't seen or covered, especially to do with the fraud side. And I think it is one of those things where, like, you look at things totally different. It's the same with the autism build that I did. After understanding the autism even more, I come to see what's going on with my own daughter. So because we cover one mummy, or well, a couple of mummies who seems to be on it in the mummy sector, a couple of mummies that is reacted on do have these food stamps and certain things. And I feel like in the UK, right, we don't know a lot of stuff about certain stuff that goes on in the US regarding the EBT and certain stuff. I think one content creator tried to explain it to me, but I feel that if I look into a little bit myself, especially with the fraud side, then looking into the other half of it, like what is it used for? Why do people get it? I know some people said because when they haven't got enough money. There's one lady, she said that how when she went to the place, because of her job, she wasn't able to get it. She had to have children. So I know it's mostly to do with the children. It's to benefit more the children and not really the mother. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show one video that came up on my recommended. All right, let me show this one.
The state predicts taxpayers will lose this year because of growing public assistance fraud.
It's awful. 4 years ago, the state implemented new technology relying on a series of questions during the online application process. Investigative reporter Darlene Jones asked why the Mueller program hasn't seemed to help.
This arrest affidavit describes the owner of the hay meat market in Ocala as a woman who took taxpayers for more than $1 million. We spent hours trying to find her. The meat market is now for sale. Her home in Gainesville just sold to new owners. Her alleged customers, Letitia Johnson and Marcia Mason, were arrested last month for felony welfare fraud. Both have pleaded not guilty.
Marcia? Yes. Darlene Jones with Channel 9. Can we talk to you about the...
She threatened to call police.
Why were you selling your food stamps?
Investigators believe Johnson and Mason sold their food stamps to the market's owner for 50 cents on the dollar.
You're right, it is taxpayer money that's being stolen.
Jack Heacock heads the Public Assistance Fraud Division at the Florida Department of Financial Services. For 3 years, he's been responsible for battling this growing trend statewide. Food stamp fraud topped $12 million last year. Already, 559 cases uncovered in the first 3 months of this year, costing taxpayers $4.2 million.
I think it's the online application, that the ease of access to public assistance benefits kind of encourages people to give it a shot.
Records provided to us by the state attorney's offices throughout Central Florida show a majority of cases aren't prosecuted. Defendants are typically offered plea deals, sent through diversion programs or probation. Public assistance fraud is a felony and can come with 5 years in prison. We could find few cases in which that actually happened.
People need to know they can go to jail for that. It's all dependent upon our state attorneys.
Eric Fanote and Quinteria Williams would be the exception. They pleaded not guilty to public assistance fraud, accused of filing nearly 800 food stamp applications using stolen identities and selling them to the former owner of this Apopka grocery store for cash.
Well, Marcia.
Back in Ocala, although Marcia Mason didn't want to talk, this man came out of her home, suggesting everybody cheats the system.
Taxpayer, you feel me? They skin they down self, you feel me? Y'all skimmers too.
Darlene Jones, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Federal investigators would not provide details on why the store owners still have not been arrested or confirm or deny any ongoing investigation. DCF told us the feds forced them to allow applicants to opt out of a series of questions that help weed out fraud shortly after that new technology was installed 4 years ago. However, the agency
So basically, it's all down to the online form and how it's filled out, so they can say whatever, and it's not checked and researched or investigated, and that's why most of these things happen. Basically, that's what I'm getting from this. But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
agency has still stopped $669 million worth of public assistance fraud since then, and that's what they are proud of.
Would Martha come to the diary room?
The alleged misuse of tens of thousands of dollars. The money was apparently taken using false information and fraudulent paperwork. Call 6 Chief Investigator Rafael Sanchez joins us with the details about those dollars.
Erica, good evening. Despite all the checks and balances, one couple accused of cashing in on programs set up to help families struggling financially. Nicole and Sam Britt came to court each with their own attorney. The couple accused of ripping off programs meant to serve the neediest in the state. Call 6 investigates obtained records show the couple was accused of being involved in fraud and theft dating back to January 2013. Nicole Britt allegedly told the state she was unemployed or working part-time to get food stamps and assistance for child care services. In fact, Britt at the time was working full-time for the Indianapolis Housing Agency. The total she and her husband are accused of illegally obtaining nearly $113,000. The Indianapolis Housing Agency cut ties with Nicole in February 2016. As part of the fraud accusations, federal investigators say she forged documentation claiming she was only working part-time. The IHA supervisor, whose name appears on the documentation, had no knowledge of the paperwork allegedly doctored to get welfare. Britt reportedly confessed in a letter to the state, saying she had submitted fraudulent documents and said yes to using work equipment to commit fraud. Despite all the checks done on recipients statewide, In 2017, there were 320 substantiated cases of food stamp fraud, totaling more than $1 million. Also last year, there were 58 cases of fraud statewide involving the child care program, totaling more than $176,000. So that's the big picture. In this case, I requested an interview with the couple now set to go on trial in June. Nicole Britt's lawyer said, in his own words, "We have no comments regarding the case at this time." The lawyer for Samuel Britt texted me saying, "Decline to comment." And you can take action on this. Any dollar that's misused does not make it to the family who needs it the most. You can report welfare fraud by calling 1-800-403-0864. Erica?
We broke the story last night about a Department of Human Services employee facing welfare fraud charges. Tonight, we're learning new details about the case and Sierra Selden Ruffin's status at the agency. 24-hour News 8's Danny Carlson is live with what we know tonight. Danny?
Well, Sue, we have been able to confirm that Sierra Selden Ruffin is off the job tonight, suspended without pay until the felony case against her wraps up. We also learned that all of this started through a DHS investigation, and that is what led to the criminal charges. Do you think the fact that she worked at DHS affected the DHS internal investigation at all?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty standard process for the DHS investigators to go through investigating whoever it might be, and they tend to handle all those investigations. Anything of a more serious nature, or a violent crime or a crime against a person, I'm sure we would handle an investigation for them.
The fraud in itself, according to Michigan State Police Lieutenant Chris McIntyre, is not all that uncommon. So far this year, Michigan State Police in Kent, Ottawa, and Muskegon counties have handled 29 cases of welfare fraud. Sierra Selden Ruffin's is the only case involving a DHS employee.
I don't think we have a kind of systemic problem within DHS. This is just a person that violated the rules, and they've got to pay the same consequences as anybody else would have to.
Selden Ruffin accused of applying for welfare last year, then not reporting changes in her household income, including not telling
announces charges for a group accused of spending millions in Metro Detroit by using fraudulent EBT cards. Thank you for joining us this noon. I'm Rhonda Walker, and Nessel says it's the surface of this scheme and just how vast it is. Pamela Osborne is following the story for us with new information on how this all worked. Pamela.
Rhonda, this was quite sophisticated. 8,000 EBT cardholders had their information and money from their accounts taken. That money was spent here to fund purchases at Sam's Club stores all across southern Michigan. In all, investigators say this ring was responsible for making $4 million in fraudulent purchases. The unusual activity was first reported to state officials last year. The AG's newly formed force team, which is in partnership with Michigan State Police, investigated. 3 people were arrested and arraigned on federal charges last week. And here's what AG Dana Nessel is saying about the reach of this enterprise and how they profited.
What happens in Michigan doesn't tend to stay in Michigan. And what we see more often than not in these types of cases is that you will have oftentimes victims over multiple states, but also that the merchandise travels.
And so the majority of those 8,000 people who had money taken from their EBT accounts, they actually are residents of California. There were some residents here in the state of Michigan and other states as well. And again, investigators are saying this is still an ongoing investigation. They fully anticipate that more people will face these federal charges down the road as this investigation continues. We're now reporting live in Detroit. I'm Local 4.
According to court documents, 6 women in Allen County are responsible for stealing and misusing food stamp funds. It all started after the food stamp program mistakenly gave one of those women an extra $3,000 in her account. News Channel 15's Randy Spieth joins us live tonight from the newsroom with more. Randy?
Yeah, Mark, investigators say this happened after a power outage last summer, and that the funds were used between July and September of last year. Now the 6 women responsible are all facing felony theft charges. A probable cause affidavit says 22-year-old Dana Freeman of Fort Wayne is facing theft and corrupt business influence charges for her involvement in illegally using food stamps. It was her electronic benefit card used to pay for groceries with food stamps that received an extra $3,000 due to an error last July. That same day, the Family and Services Administration caught the error and asked Freeman to come to the office to fix the problem. But these court documents say she never showed up. Instead, it says over the next several weeks, Freeman and several others illegally used the extra food stamps at several stores in Fort Wayne. Some of the funds were sold to others. This document says Freeman sold $300 in food stamps to Betty Anderson for $150. Anderson is the director of the voucher program at Fort Wayne's Housing Authority.
We will do an internal investigation, not so much because we think that some of our funds may or may not be involved. I don't think that's the case at all. We have no reason to believe that.
The Housing Authority's executive director has worked with Anderson for 15 years, and he expects to discuss this issue with her when she returns to work later this week.
I don't know if the issue was correct. We believe that a person is innocent until proven guilty in this country, and that's the
Right, so that one came across my recommendation, and so I decided to go and look into a little bit more information about the food stamps because I didn't understand. I kind of got a gist of what the food stamps are used for, but I went and I looked a bit more to find out a little more. So I went to the good old Wikipedia.
The internet we were promised. You deserve an explanation, so please don't skip this 1-minute read. It's Monday, November 18th, and this message will be up only briefly. Please reflect on how often you visited Wikipedia this Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Parts of this article, those related to 2021 rate increase, example Biden administration prompts largest permanent increase in food stamps, need to be updated. Please help update this article to reflect recent events or newly available information. August 2021. In the United States, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as the Food Stamp Program, is a federal government program that provides food purchasing assistance for low and no-income persons to help them maintain adequate nutrition and health. It is a federal aid program administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, under the Food and Nutrition Service, FNS, though benefits are distributed by specific departments of U.S. states, example the Division of Social Services, the Department of Health and Human Services, etc. SNAP benefits supplied roughly 40 million Americans in 2018, at an expenditure of some point during 2017, with approximately 16.7% of all children living in households with SNAP benefits. Beneficiaries and costs increased sharply with the Great Recession, peaked in 2013 and declined through 2017 as the economy recovered. It is the largest nutrition program of the 15 administered by FNS and is a key component of the social safety net for low-income Americans. The amount of SNAP benefits received by a household depends on the household's size, income, and expenses. For most of its history, the program used paper-denominated stamps or coupons worth $1, brown, $5, blue, and $10, green, bound into booklets of various denominations, to be torn out individually and used in single-use exchange. Because of their 1:1 value ratio with actual currency, the coupons were printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Their rectangular shape resembled a US dollar bill, although about 1/2 the size, including intaglio printing on high-quality paper with watermarks. In the late 1990s, the food stamp program was revamped, with some states phasing out actual stamps in favor of a specialized debit card system known as Electronic Benefit Transfer, EBT, provided by private contractors. EBT has been implemented in all states since June 2004. Each month, SNAP benefits are directly deposited into the household's EBT card account. Households may use EBT to pay for food at supermarkets, convenience stores, and other food retailers, including certain farmers markets. History edit. Origin of food stamps edit. The federal government's ability to alleviate hunger through the means of food stamps was first introduced with Congress passing the income tax law. Even after the federal government had the funding to create a social safety net, its involvement in food assistance was not introduced until the 1930s, when the Great Depression caused unemployment, homelessness, and starvation to become a national issues that permeated such a high percentage of the population. At the time of the Great Depression, farmers were growing surplus produce, but unemployed and impoverished people were unable to afford to buy it. The origin of food stamps were intended partially to help the poor, but just as equally to boost the economy and pay farmers a fair price for their labors. In essence, food stamps were intended to create a political agreement between agriculture and the federal government by giving out excess goods in a crisis. Food Stamp Program, FSP, May 16, 1939. Ring 1943, edit. The idea for the first food stamp program has been credited to various people, most notably Secretary of Agriculture Henry A. Wallace and the program's first administrator, Milo Perkins. Of the program, Perkins said, "We got a picture of a gorge, with farm surpluses on one cliff and undernourished city folks with outstretched hands on the other. We set out to find a practical way to build a bridge across that chasm." The program, run by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, by permitting people on relief to buy orange stamps equal to their normal food expenditures, for every $1 of orange stamps purchased, 50 cents worth of blue stamps were received. Orange food stamps could be used at any food retailers or wholesalers, but excluded alcoholic beverages, concession stand meals that could be eaten on premises, and tobacco products. The blue stamps could only be used to buy what the USDA defined as surplus produce, which included items such as beans, eggs, fruit, and the like. Over the course of nearly 4 years, the first FSP reached approximately 20 million people in nearly half of the counties in the United States at a total cost of $262 million. At its peak, the program assisted an estimated 4 million people. The first recipient was Mabel McFiggin of Rochester, New York. The first retailer to redeem the stamps was Joseph Mutolo, and the first retailer caught violating program rules was Nick Salzano in October 1939. The program ended when the conditions that brought the program into being, unmarketable food surpluses and widespread unemployment, ceased to exist. By 1943, the start of World War II equalized the agricultural economy and the unemployment rate was lowered, and incentive to help those still in need was not reason enough for the government to continue this program. Pilot Food Stamp Program, 1961 to 1964, edit. The 18 years between the end of the first FSP and the inception of the next were filled with studies, reports, and legislative proposals.
Okay, so that's just a blanket explanation or an overview explanation of why the food stamps are given and why and when it started. Well, I didn't make you do all of it because, you know, there's a lot of reasons behind it, and it was already violated by somebody in one time or the other. So what I'm gonna do also is share this one.
Thieves are getting away with millions of dollars. Food stamps wiped off of your EBT card in seconds.
I knew I had money on my card.
From this DHS worker allegedly caught changing PIN numbers to buy groceries for herself, to skimmers waiting for you to swipe at the counter.
A big inconvenience.
The Shade Room is getting down to the bottom and what they need to do before you use your EBT card again. I'm Justin Carter. This is TSR Investigates. Groceries are high and money is funny for the tens of thousands of people who rely on SNAP benefits to feed their families. That's why the Secret Service and the FBI, they've been taking food stamp fraud seriously lately. Last year alone, $60 million worth of stamp fraud was reported. And so we at the Shade Room, we decided to piece together how these scamianas are doing it. Don't be fooled by the warm smile. What police say 57-year-old Nadine Jean-Baptiste did was stone cold. She was a principal clerk at the Department of Human Services in Rhode Island for over a decade. She supervised customer service assistants and had full access to EBT printing machines there. She knows the system.
This is a big inconvenience.
For 4 years, police say Nadine accessed people's personal information to check their EBT card balances. She then went in and changed their PIN numbers so that she could use their cards. 408 of them since January 2020. And investigators were onto her.
So can you imagine, right? You go in to buy food for your family, and somebody goes and does this to you as you're going to get food for your family or for your children. Man, it's like there's no levels to how people is now, like, you know, and there's quite a few of these stories. There's so many of these stories, it's unbelievable. When I came across this story, even I was kind of shocked in a way, because after covering one mummy who was saying at one point she wasn't getting it and all this stuff, I was listening to one reactor and she was explaining about the HIC, the WIC, and the other stuff that is given to the families, and that most of the families that are on the family channels, well, not all of them, particular ones, they wasn't being given the food and whatever. Now there is another flip side to it, because as you can see, employees of certain places can fraud the EBT card pins and different things. But there's also another side where, like, people will also be doing it as well. Be also, like, I mean, like, there is such a thing as selling food stamps. I've heard about this before. This is nothing new to me, but when you really think about it, what's it really for, right? And who is it for, is when it gets really crazy, because it's really, well, in my thinking, I'll be thinking it's more for the needy people who needs it, like, you know, people who go to, I'll say, food banks and different places, like very low income places, very low income families. So when you hear of these people who's actually working, who's actually doing this, is kind of shocking in a kind of a way. So that's why I did it both ways. One of the family and one of the employees. I can't remember if I did come across families. I probably did come across a few people doing it, like I said. but I'm just learning because I'm from across the pond. So upon hearing all these information about the WIC, the HIC, and I can't remember the other one, I went to look and see what else is going on, basically. So this lady, I feel, is quite brazen and quite out of order that she did this to people. And that's my thinking, because it's really for the families who need it. And she is already employed, and I think she got hefty penalty for this, to be honest.
Her heavy. Here she is in June 2024 leaving a local market after using somebody else's EBT card. In July, she conducted 3 phone balance inquiries on another EBT card before going on a food run at a Stop and Shop. And here she is again at BJ's. The card she was using belonged to a man that was in jail. And she didn't do it alone. Police say her daughter, 27-year-old Octavia John Baptiste, was also in on the scheme. They say she fraudulently used 95 EBT cards over the course of their years-long investigation. And the trick is, many of the victims' names were either kids eligible for the summer nutrition program, adults serving time in jail, or people reported deceased.
I mean, I was literally in Walmart crying.
Tracy Ransom, a Jersey native, was shocked when she saw this $555 transaction on her food stamp card. Someone unknown used it at a grocery store in Harlem at 4:26 a.m.
So I wanted to see what my balance was to know what I was going to spend in that store. And when I went on the app and I checked my balance, I only saw $8.98, and I just broke down saying someone stole all my money.
She left Walmart empty-handed. She had 3 grandchildren to feed.
But I called the EBT provider, and they canceled my card. She told me that keep in mind that it's happened to a lot of people, and that goes to the inspector general. Once they investigate or whatever, they will issue your stamps. And I'm like, what is there to investigate?
She is still waiting for her replacement funds. And so is Takoya Jordan from Lithonia, Georgia. She has 4 kids herself.
I knew I had money on my card.
Somebody stole over $500 in funds from her on the same day, October 5th.
So I went on the app and I saw that 4 different transactions from a store in Bronx, New York at 5:36 a.m. on October 5th. They was like over $120 transactions each.
They left her with 10 cents.
I just can't go and get the things that I need for me and my children because all my stamps is gone.
Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture found that over 125,000 households across the nation reported SNAP benefit theft last year. States like New York hit the hardest with $17 million in theft in 2023 alone. This year, Maryland, Illinois, Texas, Georgia are also up there. Here's Karen Ransom, special agent in charge for the U.S. Secret Service.
But a lot of times what we see is that EBT and other payment card numbers are typically re-encoded onto phony cards that have magnetic strips that allows an individual other than the card holder to make purchases and in some cases withdraw cash.
Phishing and skimming is another big one. This family fell for a phishing scam in North Carolina when someone posing as a vendor offered them a free tablet and phone.
They took a picture of the EBT card and her driver's license and got our information. I think that's how it was because they were from New York.
These Romanian nationals were charged back in April, accused of installing skimming devices at ATMs and cash registers, cloning the cards, then using them for cash withdrawals.
I still haven't heard anything back from anybody about replacing the stamps or anything.
And that's the problem. Recipients are saying that it's taking weeks, if not months, to either get a replacement card or replacement funds, which they say is unacceptable. Now, the federal government says the best line of defense in making sure that this doesn't happen to you and that you can get your money back is contacting your state's Department of Human Services. You can also call or submit a report to the Inspector General's office with the information that's listed at the bottom of your screen. For TSR Investigates, I'm Justin Carter.
Right, I'm also going to go to one that I've seen from Georgia as well. So we're going to go over there too. I'm just going to various, I don't know if I can go to most states, but it's the ones that come up the most.
How are thieves stealing millions of dollars worth of food stamps? How are thieves stealing millions of dollars worth of food stamps? Families have been scrambling to recover after learning their EBT cards have been wiped out. Fox News' Kevin Stewart has the story tonight.
I took the money out of my card up there way in New York.
Scammers, thieves are at work.
I'm sitting in the house, ain't nothing in my refrigerator.
At the Department of Human Services location in Riverdale, folks are trading stories, all hoping to get reimbursed for missing food stamp dollars.
They defrauded me too.
67-year-old Thea Pack says,
See, in these ones now, they're just showing outside bodies, you know what I'm saying? They're not showing like it's done by families. I mean, ideally, I would guess that most is done by family, that by people claiming fake food stamps, whatever, like with most things. But I just found this very, very educational, you know what I mean? Because of how, because it's not on paper no more. So now it's on a card, which is similar to a credit card. It's similar to when like you get contactless, right? That's what it sounds like to me. So I think that's how they're lifting off the money from the card. You know, it's like it's a tap thing, it's a tap or pin. So that's what I'm thinking is happening, and that's why I think they are able to get their food, the money off of the card, right? And the fact that how it's mostly in various places. So they're saying this is done by a foreign gang. I'm not saying that all foreign people who are from Romania are like this, no. Right? So like this is just one gang who's been scamming people out of their EBT cards, giving them like the guy said, like a tablet, etc., taking pictures of the card, certain things going on. So these are all like EBT things, or I'm sure there's more stories going the other way too, like I said. So I'm not putting all the same, but that's why I gave the example of the reasons why the food stamps is given in the first place, right? But obviously stuff was also going on where employees was taking PIN numbers, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let this one continue to play because it's right, like they're obviously investigating it, they're trying to tighten it up, they're trying to do all the necessary, but it still keeps happening.
her EBT card unexpectedly came up empty for the second time in 2 months.
I mean, somebody in New Jersey, it was September the 3rd. I went to Walmart to use my card, and the card keeps saying decline.
DeWanna Reeves has 5 kids and a grandchild to feed. She's been ripped off of over $1,000 over 2 months.
I got another card, so I still don't understand how they did it again.
The Georgia Department of Human Services says it has determined food stamp benefits have been skimmed or stolen by some other means. Since October 19th of last year, the Georgia Department of Human Services has approved more than 5,600 claims, totaling nearly $3 million in reimbursed benefits.
It don't make any sense.
Carla Bashir has filed a police report over this. DHS is advising clients to protect their PINs by resetting the numbers and contacting them to file a claim. To add insult to injury, these folks showed up at the Riverdale office only to learn the office was closed and they had to go to Fayette County or Henry County.
I shouldn't have to go through this.
In Riverdale, Kevin Stewart, Fox 5 News.
So like so that's why I'm just that's why I'm that's why I'm just looking through this great little bit by little bit, because there's been employees doing it, there's other people doing it, it goes on and on and on. They even did in Houston, there was a whole investigation done on the cards, on the EBT cards or the food stamp cards. Once again, these are done by employees. Again, trying to pause this, and I think I'm just going to play the thing. I'm not going to play the video.
Texas employee investigated after hundreds of food stamps stolen. A search warrant named 2 women for allegedly changing pins on Lone Star cards, preventing owners from using them. Houston, Texas, KTRK. An investigation is underway after more than $81,000 in authorized charges were made on hundreds of Lone Star cards. ABC 13 obtained a warrant that named a state employee as one of the suspects. Eyewitness News isn't naming the employee or her alleged co-conspirator since neither has been charged with the crime at this point. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission's Office of Inspector General began investigating in January following an anonymous call to the state SNAP fraud hotline. The tipster told them a Health and Human Services employee was stealing SNAP card information and selling it on Facebook and Instagram. Investigators later found the employee, who works at the Health and Human Services office on West Little York in Acres Homes, had changed the pins on 211 Lone Star cards from across the state, preventing the rightful owners from using them. They say another woman who used to work in the same office before being fired in 2018 for unspecified reasons worked with the first woman and changed 157 pins. The women are then accused of making unauthorized charges on the cards and selling them to third parties. In July, investigators say the first woman confessed to her part in the scheme. She allegedly told investigators the second woman paid her 50 cents for each dollar of stolen SNAP benefits. Investigators say she claimed she did it to pay for her late son's funeral. A search warrant on the woman's phone suggests the scheme could have been going on as far back as June 2023. Investigators say she told them it didn't begin until November 2023. When Eyewitness News contacted both women named in the search warrant for comment, the second woman claimed she wasn't aware of the investigation's existence. Eyewitness News has also asked the Health and Human Services Commission if the first woman is still employed, and we're waiting to hear back. For news updates, follow Luke Jones on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Texas employee.
So it's one of those ones, isn't it? Because even now I'm looking, I have only seen one incident. I mean, there's probably more of them. There's probably more. See, it's hard to find them. Yeah, I can't seem to find the ones I'm looking for. So in most cases, they're just saying how oh, this was done 2 weeks ago. So once again, there's these situations that keeps popping up.
.30 missing SNAP benefits and a lot of questions. Several people in Mobile say hundreds of dollars disappeared from their accounts. WKRG News 5's Christina J. Harris shares their frustration as she tries to get answers.
It is embarrassing.
I had to pay with
It
cash
is,
for the people behind me. Like, oh, she broke.
At least 5 Mobile residents, all with the same story. They all showed up to the Department of Human Resources office on Monday asking about funds that had vanished from their Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program accounts. One of those people says she found out her SNAP card was declined when she was trying to buy groceries.
I had a bucket full of stuff, and then the lady was like, it ain't none on your card.
See, the same situation, money's gone. So I don't know whether the mummies are going through this in the mummy sector, the mummies that I've spoken about, whether that is what's happening to them as well, because it seems to be happening in Georgia, Richmond, and I can't remember the next place. So it's like it's switched now, the food stamp fraud kind of thing. Though we know that people do not use their food stamps for the right reasons anyways. But these women was using their food stamps for the right reasons, getting food for their family. All the money was gone. All the money had disappeared. They had to go to the center, the office, to go and find out what's going on.
But I'm like, what? And I know I get mine every month on the 4th faithful.
Right.
And I got a baby, so like.
Right.
And then what people supposed to do? They don't got no money today. And then they like talking about 10 days, like, people gonna be homeless stealing food.
Another woman who didn't want to reveal her identity says a DHR worker told her someone in New York had used her account several times, draining more than $700 from her account.
I mean, as soon as I walked in, all the chairs were full, and then they finally came out and said, "Who's here for fraudulent?" And literally everyone in the room raised their hands because nobody. I mean, it was the same story for everybody.
We found several others here at the DHR office with similar complaints, all with fraudulent transactions from Bronx, New York. A worker at the Mobile office referred us to the state office in Montgomery. We've reached out to find out more about the missing money, including how many other people might have been impacted. We're waiting to hear back. In Mobile, Christina J. Harris, WKRG News 5.
Okay, so it's one of those ones. I'm obviously not going to find my answers on the good old net, because I know how there's probably been people who's been charged with food stamp frauds. I remember looking up information on one, and it says in Texas, like, there is a 4-year prison time, and there'll be a hefty fine if the stamps are not used. I think if the stamps are not used properly. Let me see. I think I did put it in. Let me see. Let me see if I could find it, because it was specific. It doesn't show it now. But it did say that how if they're caught, see, in Texas, a class misdemeanor carries up to 1 year in jail, and they fine of $4,000. If the value of the SNAP and benefit card is over $200, then the crime will be reclassified as a third-degree felon. So the person become a third-degree felon. So they can also get, what happens if you have to pay back food stamps if you lose So they pay them, they recover it. Let me see. Mostly just tells the basics, really. Talks about people abusing it, but it doesn't really say much. But basically, that is what happens if a person is not using the card properly. They will get a hefty fine and classification. Then they'll be seen as a felon. So, you know, I mean, when those two popped up on my screen, I just had to look at it and also talk about it. Not talk about it, but look at it in general, because like me living across the pond, I know it's different to over here to over there. Things are run differently over here. You cannot feed a child, have money for a child and not feed the child, give the child something, because that's all checked on and everything. So I don't know how these ladies are getting away with it, where they are, where they at, or however they're pulling it off, or whatever they're doing. But obviously people is getting caught, right? So if they continue, things happen, I'm not going to say put mouth on them or whatever, but that's how it looks like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get off this live and I'm going to probably come back. But if I don't come back, I'll just come back tomorrow, or I might do a second one, but I'll see how it goes. And basically, this is just for me to find out a little bit more about the food stamps and EBT thing, really. Not so much of the history, but but why was it given? What was the reasons why they gave it, and all that stuff, So I'm just learning myself. So if you see me looking at it and listening, because I'm listening myself, I'm learning myself. So, and this always comes up in the mummy sector. This is one of the biggest things that comes up in the mummy sector about the food stamps and how they use. Now the ladies did say the time when they get it, and what it's used for. She bought food. So food is the biggest thing that there's bought. And like the guy was saying, well, many people sell their thing. Well, I even heard of that as well before too. So I'm trying to see if I need to cut anything else, because I know as soon as I pop off of here, I'm gonna see something else. And that happens a lot. As soon as I come off of the live, I end up seeing something else. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't see that one. So I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm not even going to make it like I know loads about the EBT thing, but just that little basic thing there, I think I learned a little bit, and I'm just going to leave it there. So thank you for coming through, who's ever listening in the clouds, and I'll see you. Please put in the comments information on the food stamps, and I mean as well, because even if I read some of that would even let me understand what is what, you know what I'm saying. But I know that working people definitely cannot get it. Definitely they cannot get it. It has to be given, advocate to children, babies, families, however big, however small. I don't know about whether it's to do with the special needs thing, whether that has something to do with it, but maybe that has something to do with it. But like I said, I'm going to come off, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.